Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy.
All right, folks, here we are on Monday, January 27th. We're going to take a look at SoFi today. So, SoFi, as I'm sure you know by now, got beat up a little bit today after earnings. There's more to it, I think, than just SoFi's earnings. There's also the markets that had quite a struggle based off of, was it DeepSeek? Is that what it's called? Coming out and sort of throwing tech and AI just, all askew. So I think, the combo of that plus the SoFi earnings coming out, my understanding is basically, SoFi, the earnings call was good, but the guidance, um, was not what folks would want it to be. And so it's getting punished for that. This is a lot of what we said a few videos ago when we talked about, this huge run up, basically tripled in price from early August through, up until earnings. And that tripling in price comes with a cost. It comes with adverse reactions to good or decent earnings calls. You can still get punished for it because it's seen, okay, this is good or this is on par, but this isn't worth triple the stock price. So it can get beat up just on that. If then there is sort of revising down on guidance or lackluster outlook for the year ahead, or any sort of like little bit of chink in the armor that, makes people uneasy and it's tripled in price over a several month run, then yeah, you're going to get punished. Plus, then, the market's being down and tech definitely taking a big hit today. That's going to further suppress the price, right? So, tough confluence of events here, but, in many ways, not anything that wasn't already kind of foreseen, if you will. I don't want to sound too much like a soothsayer, but I talked in the video a lot about, the run up in the price being so dramatic in a relatively short period of time, and how much will folks feel it's priced in versus, it being unwarranted, and then sort of pull it back to some level. Now, that's the question. Pull back to what level? So this is what it looks like. So even falling through the levels that we had on the chart that we put in the, these are the same levels that we had in the last video, they held up really well. 1584 is the battle right now. I know it's floating a bit above that at the moment, 1610 in the after hours, but it spent a bunch of today wrestling with that. It's right where it caught support when it was kind of getting punished into open. That's where it bounced at open, returned to it, and then wrestled and kind of lingered on slightly above. So, and it came in right at this 1745 level, and that's where it pushed off of when it had, these are 10-minute candles, and it had a 10-minute candle that's down 8%. And, these big moves, it's still batting around between the levels that we have on the chart. So I feel really good about the levels, and I think that they held up quite well, basically doing exactly what we'd want them to do. And so here's where we go from here. If SoFi shows a reluctance to hold 1584, again, be that because it's anything particular to SoFi, or just if this macro issue with the AI and DeepSeek and all that sort of, takes further hold and the sell-off continues, a stock that has tripled in price over the course of a few months is probably gonna get a brunt of that pullback. If the NASDAQ is down 3, this is gonna be down 10. And that's, we've seen this happen before. This is just the case. But 1584 is the key level at the moment. If it loses that, 1422 and 1325 would be the next best strong support levels. There is certainly something probably right here, just under 15. It's like 1486. So I would keep an eye on that. If it does get just a little bit dippy below 15, but maybe it's not going to stretch all the way to that 1422. There's potential there for a pickup of support around 1486. To me, it's just not as strong of a level. It's not as obviously strong of a level as these other ones. And I don't want to clutter the chart. I'm trying to not clutter the chart. Now, if we do get a recovery off of this drawback today, right, bring it down a little over 10%, maybe folks, okay, we're really overreacting here. This is whatever. 1745, and we already saw what it, sort of was trying to pick up off of that level. 1866, right, it came within 24 cents of that at that peak, and 1936 are the levels that I have to the upside. And if we get there and get to it and through it, we can come take another look. But we're covering a lot of ground here, 1325 to 1936 for a stock of this price. That's a big percentage range to be covering. So hopefully we have ourselves covered for at least this week or something. We'll see. The other thing I will mention before we flip over to the EMAs is just keep an eye out for analysts. I would suspect, my inclination would be watch out for downgrades. But I don't know that that's what will happen. But, I would just sort of keep an eye on it as new analysts, such and such bank lowers SoFi price target to, who knows, $12, whatever it is. And so those things historically have often moved, at least in a brief sense, the SoFi stock. So you might see some sort of residual motion based off of that, and analysts, lowering price targets or things of that nature. We see, this is not what I want to look at, order flow. We actually see some large scale orders coming in. So interesting. There seems to be some interest in buying the dip from the large scale folks. So we'll see if that sort of plays a factor. Total profited shares, even with that huge run up and but with today's pullback, getting us down under 60% of total profited shares as of close today. And so we'll see, how these folks want to hold. You see the huge sort of shelving, if you want to call it that, here on the distribution. Huge shelving here down to like you see here, like 15.29 or so. So, we said sort of watch out if it does get below 15. That's like high, I think you said like 14.86 or so. Looks like there's potential there. That might align well with something like this, where there's some shelving there just above 15. If it has some momentum downward, maybe folks are interested to pick up what they will feel are cheap shares in this range, which would sort of coincide with that 1486-ish area, or whatever that dip just below 15 is. If we look at the volume positioning here, big shelf, right? It's sort of found itself smack dab in the middle of this big shelf, a decent sized shelf here, and then it does get sort of lumpy, but then really thin, right? Obviously below here where it had this dip down to 1360 this day, right? So a decent amount of volume in there from that motion previously, like relatively recently, but then, we do get really thin below that, but that's a ways off if we get there. Now, I will also mention for all of the gap hounds out there, obviously this left us a gap today, right? So the gap as it stands, it would be getting into this gap from below. So it would enter it at about 1698, 1699, and it would fill it at 1786, right? So, for you folks who are big gap players, that's maybe something to think about or to just note and do with it what you will. Now, 34 EMA is right where it picked it up today, right? Stretched down to it, picked it up right off of there, and then it just kind of put in the body of the candle at the 21. This is actually kind of remarkably odd. Put in the body of the candle at the 21, wicked off the 8, wicked off the 34. So there you have it. 183 way down here. Certainly hope for the SoFi bulls that doesn't play a factor, but we'll see. There was an impressive recovery over here when things turned bullish. That's what we spoke about last video. But we'll see how this turn sort of sorts itself out and where it goes from there. But right now it is just kind of stuck to those EMAs and not throwing any bearish crossovers yet at the moment. Now, pull these back in. We'll go to the think or swim set of things. Trigger and fire, and we're getting, that fire is really putting in a lot of work here. So it triggered here. We had a brief move down and then bang. That's when it shot up, right? This is a really good opportunity for huge gains over a brief period of time from 13 to 18 over the course of just a few trading days. And now it's coming back down strong. So we'll see. It's trying to catch support right along that call trigger for January, which is 1607. We'll see if that can hold. That would obviously be a good sign for the bulls. If it does get dippy, the put trigger is all the way down at 1473. So I don't know that it would get there, given that there's only, this is the last trading week in January, and then the levels are going to switch to here for February. So we'll see what that looks like. But it is interesting that it's kind of trying to hold support at that call trigger at the moment, which, we'll see what happens. It should be interesting, but yeah, that would be my 2 cents. Keep an eye out for the analysts' ratings and for any fluctuations that causes in the near term. I don't know that it would be super long lasting, but my concern would maybe be even if things are sort of short lived, right? If it just sort of gets some momentum to the downside, SoFi having the price history that it does, like this, right, it can get slippery really quickly. And so we've seen a tremendous recovery lately, but I do often worry that a few bad catalysts in a row, even if they don't persist, just the downward momentum, and SoFi having struggled to recuperate from that meaningfully in the past, might sort of hit it a little harder than other stocks. Plus this macro situation, like I said, any of these, especially like former SPACs, at some point maybe we get to forget that SoFi was a SPAC, but for now, maybe there's still some residual sort of stink of the SPAC on it, and tripling of the price and so on and so forth. So I would just expect that if the markets continue to get hit, SoFi will probably get hit plus a little bit more, and we'll just have to take it as it comes. Nothing that you can really particularly do to shift that. All right, folks, I hope that your trading week is off to a good start, and as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.